Okay folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to kind of do a quick how-to here. I'm going to show you how I go about cutting out these slots and getting these ends nice and square. Now some people will come in right here and right at the end of that slot, and they'll just take a drill bit and they'll drill a hole, and then they'll just connect the cut lines to the hole, and that's how they cut their slots out. I do it a little bit different. Unfortunately, I can't hold the camera and run the jigsaw at the same time, and I don't think I can set this camera up enough and get it steady enough to where you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a couple of cuts here and just kind of show you the progress and just how I go about getting these ends up here nice and square. So I will be right back here in just a moment. Bear with me. Okay, so I made my first two cuts, and I made all my measurements on these pieces last night. I know exactly how deep I need to go this way, and I've got a mark here, and again I'm just going to kind of run my thumb across there so you can see. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I do have a mark right there, and I've made these cuts up to that mark. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come over, I'm just going to pick one because I'm right-handed. It's just easier for me to go to this right side cut right here, and I'm just going to cut a little curve, and I'm going to connect it to this point on the other side right here. And then when this piece falls away, I just come back with the jigsaw, and there we go. And it's just got a bright light out here. It's just hard for me to see where my camera's pointing to. But anyway, what I do is, like I said, I make a cut over to this other line, and I just connect them right here. Now when this little piece falls away, then I just take the jigsaw and I just nibble out that little piece. So let me get that done, and I will get right back to you there. Okay, and that's what I was talking about. You can see that I still got that little piece left right there, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my jigsaw and I'm just going to nibble it out, and I'm going to go right up to this this line right here, and just very, very carefully just kind of mill that out right there so I can get that nice square cutout that I like right there. So I'll show you that here when I get it done. Show you the finished product here in just a moment. And just like that, that's how it's done. Now I've got now a nice slot cut out. Now it's not finished. I've still got to come in here and sand to get these sides right here where I'm running my finger. I've got to go inside and sand the inside diameters to get the final inside diameter that I want. I need to be able to slide a piece of 3/8 plywood up in here, because this is what's going to interface with the stringers on the boat. But I've got a little setup made for that. Take that sticky sided sandpaper that they use in body work, auto body work, and I just stick it to a little flat piece of wood or a little flat piece of metal, and I just go in here and I just work this until I get the slot wide enough to accommodate that little piece of 3/8 plywood. So that's how I do it. It's pretty basic. It's just kind of tedious. I've only got 11 more of these to go, so I will get back with you, and thanks for watching. See you next segment. Okay, so this is the last of the 4 ribs. I've got the other 3 done. I've just got to finish cutting these other 2 slots out right here, and I'm going to kind of do that little demonstration again one more time for you, because I was really having a hard time seeing where the camera was pointing. I've got my view screen here. With the bright sunlight, it is hard for me to see exactly what the camera's pointing at. I mean, I can see that right there. You know, I see my hand, you know, over here pointing to the cut lines here, pointing to my marks where I'm going to cut. And so I'll do that one more time for you, just in case the camera's straight off, because like I said, man, I'm really having a hard time seeing the view screen. So let me get those cut, and once again, I will show you how I do that. Alright, well, it is just a little bit easier to see once you make your cuts. As you can see, I made the 2 cuts up to this mark right here, and then the next thing I do is I just pick a side. Like I said, I'm right-handed. It's easier for me to go over to the right side, and then I just cut on a little curve right here, and I cut to that point, and I'll show you that here in just a second. Okay, so I made that cut, and you can see I've got that little wedge shaped piece left in there. So all I do is I just go in there with the jigsaw and just nibble that out, and like I mentioned in that previous segment, very carefully up to my mark right there, and I just kind of use the saw blade just to kind of nibble up to that line right there, get that nice and straight. I'll show you the finished product here in just a moment. I do wish I had a way to hold this camera steady while I made the cut, but I don't, so this is the best I can do. Okay, and just like that, it's cut out, and all I do is I just go straight in with the saw blade and just work the saw blade back and forth until I get that little wedge shape, triangle shaped piece cut out, and that's all there is to it. Easy as pie. Okay, so this is my little setup right here that I was telling you about. This sandpaper right here has got an adhesive backing on it, and they use this in auto body repair, and that adhesive backing is there so that piece of sandpaper can be stuck onto a long board. This is called a long board, and like I said, that's used primarily in auto body repair, and they still use these. Of course, they have air powered ones too that they use. But all I did is just took a little piece of, I think this is 1/4" poplar right here, and just stuck this onto it, and then if I need to open these slots up any, all I'll do is I'll just come in there and work those sides like so, and get them sanded until I can put a little piece of scrap 3/8 Marani plywood in there. And as you can see on that one, I've still got a little bit to do, but I'll show you this. These, I promise you, I have not done anything to. I didn't do anything to these off camera. This is actually ready to go. This was just from the cutting operation there, so I didn't have to do any sanding. And you know, what can I say? You know, I guess I'm getting good at this stuff. That's just me patting myself on the back there. Actually, it's probably more blind luck than anything else. Okay. Get back to you when I get ready to cut out the lightning holes. Okay, looky here. I've got all these done. I actually had to do very little in the way of sanding to get these pieces opened up enough to where the 3/8 plywood would slide into those slots. So I was very pleased with that. Like I said, I must be living right, or blind luck, one of the two. We'll go with living right. So I'm doing a test fit right now, and they're a little bit snug, and as you can see, this one's kind of sitting up a little high. This is actually how it should look right here when it's done. Of course, I got to put the lightning holes in it, and this is just a test fit. It's going to come back apart, and I need to get a little rubber mallet and kind of tap these in place, but I can't do that right now. My grandson's inside taking a nap, and if I get out here and start beating and banging, we got little old yappy dogs in the house that are going to start barking and making a bunch of noise and waking him up, so we don't want to do that. Get out here later on and do that. I might run the video camera while I'm doing the test fit and knocking these ribs in place. I also got to see if these tops of these ribs and the tops of these stringers are flush. I want them flush like what we have right here, because when you start making your cut, you're never going to get it perfect, and sometimes you might go just a little bit too deep. Go too deep, no problem. We just put a shim in under here to raise this back up so it doesn't sit down so low. And like I said, there's ways around any problem you can run into. Okay, so once my grandson wakes up, I will get out here and get these knocked in place. We'll check the fit, and as you can see right here, I've got all of these ribs marked forward, and that's because when you stack these ribs on top of each other, all these, let me get over here, it's a little bit better, a little easier to get to. All these sides match up, and it almost looks like I just laid them on top of each other and sanded them all at the same time, but I didn't. They just again, must be living right. They all fell out that way. But when you flip them around, you know, you see a little bit of differences there, maybe 30/2 of an inch. So this was just the best way I found to make sure that all these sides were even. If we're a little off on one side, 30/2 of an inch. I mean, you're not even going to notice that. I do have to make one little change right here. I've got to take this metal, this aluminum angle right here, and get it out of here because it's actually too long. It's sitting underneath where this rib needs to go. So I've got this clamped to the table. I got this whole bow end of the boat clamped to the table with that piece, but I've got to take it out and cut it right about in here somewhere so I can do my test fit with this rib right here, so I can go ahead and knock it down in place. And then once I get those knocked down and they look the way I want them to look, and everything's flush, or if I have to add shims, we'll take care of that, and then we'll get them back out to the lightning holes cut, finish sand, and then you know what comes next. Time to mix up the resin and get out the micro balloons and start making up the thickened epoxy. And then after that, flip the boat over, put the skin on. After that, fiberglass it. After that, finish it, paint it, get a trailer, get an outboard, go down to Texas Parks and Wildlife, get it inspected. Okay, slow down, back up. One thing at a time. All right, catch you next segment. All right, folks, welcome back. As I mentioned in the previous segment, got all my ribs cut out now, and as you can see, I've been test fitting them, and don't have anything bonded in place yet. I've still got to do the little bore job here on the lightning holes. Still have to get those cut out, and also I found that we don't live in a perfect world. If we lived in a perfect world, then plywood would be perfectly straight. And here's what I mean by that. I laid a straight edge along all these points right here. This point to this point to this point. Had like an 8-foot straight edge. And what I ended up with was a little bit of a gap right here. And so what I ended up having to do was having to pull the entire frame over toward the wall there and then clamp everything back in place, because it was almost like, now this is kind of exaggerated here with my hand, but it was almost like we had just the entire assembly was bowed just a little bit. And so I had to come up here also and pull this over just a bit and then clamp it to this table. And you can't see that because that little piece of aluminum angle that I use is on the other side. Let me see if I can put this camera in a little bit better position so you can see that. And so what I had to do, like I said, was I had to sort of move this little piece of angle over a little bit and then reclamp everything in order to get this entire frame assembly pulled that way about a 1/4 of an inch, because like I said, it seemed like the whole thing just kind of had a curve to it there. We don't live in a perfect world, like I said. If we did, well, then plywood would be perfectly straight. It's not, you know, it does tend to bow and warp and move around a little bit on you. So easy enough to fix, and I've got it all now to where when I lay my straight edge up on these points right here, I'm going to move that rib back. When I get a straight edge on these points and line them all up, like I said, from here to here, all the way back to the stern of the boat, everything is nice and even. Everything's touching now. It's just I'm touching at all points, and had to reclamp everything. Had to clamp these braces back in place. I had to get everything fastened back down to the table. Remember, I had popped those loose in a previous video after I had finished bonding in this rib, but that's okay. We got it all pulled straight and ready to go back in place. And the plan is I'm going to work these one at a time. I'm not going to pop all 4 of these back out at the same time again. I'm going to leave 3 of these in place while I work one. And I don't know, I might even bond these in one at a time and just work them one at a time. It's a little more tedious, a little more time consuming that way, but I'm going to be less likely, at least I think, of inducing any more bows and warps in this plywood, and I think I'll have a better chance keeping everything straight as I bond all the ribs into place. So that's all I have for you tonight. I will probably not be able to post a video, probably for another 7 to 10 days. We have some really bad weather in the forecast for next week, and it's actually going to be kind of like up north weather. It's going to get down in the teens. We have 3 or 4 days in a row where the lows are going to be down like 16, 17 degrees. And of course, out here where I live in the north part of Fort Worth, right on the edge of town, I live out by Alliance Airport, here on the extreme north end of Fort Worth. We'll probably see about 12 or 13 degrees, and it's just like, wow, that's what I left behind when I was up on the New York-Pennsylvania border last weekend. So, and like I said in the past video, what that does is it kind of hinders me on the epoxy. The epoxy does not work well in cold weather. I do have a temperature range that I have to work with, and it's just going to be too cold to get out here and bond this stuff together. And so I'm going to be at a standstill, and I'm not going to be able to produce any videos. And I'm just like I'm just going to have to just shut down and wait for the weather to warm back up before I can get out here and mix up that epoxy. And even right now it's too cold. It's below 60 degrees, and well, actually it's a little bit warmer than that. But I'm still not ready to bond the stuff together yet. I've got to get out here and bore these holes and get these lightning holes cut. And of course it's late at night, family's inside the house asleep, and that makes a lot of noise, so I can't do that tonight. Hopefully we can get some done this weekend before the cold weather gets here, before that cold front gets here. And if I do, then I'll start making another video and show you how that's progressing. So stay tuned for the devotional segment. That's coming up next. Thank you for watching. And welcome to the devotional segment. I want to kind of just touch on some of the things that we're going through in this country right now, some of the divisions. I want to address that. We all know right now this nation is deeply divided. And so without any further ado, I just want to read to you from the book of Ecclesiastes. This is in chapter 4, beginning with verse 9. And the scripture says there that 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their efforts. For if either one falls, his companion can lift him up. But pity the one who falls without someone else there to lift him up. Also, if 2 lie down together, they can keep warm. But how can one person alone keep warm? And if someone overpowers one person, 2 can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Well, the application here is very simple. We're stronger when we stand together. And this is true of the church. It's true for families. It's true for marriages. And in fact, this passage is often used by pastors and ministers when they're counseling a couple whose marriage is going through a rough patch. We can also apply this passage to our work life. There's a reason why employers place so much emphasis on team building in the workplace, and it's because employers know it's better when all of their employees are pulling in the same direction. This passage can also be applied and should be applied to a nation, and right now it needs to be applied to our nation. Right now, the United States of America, it's sad but true, it bears little resemblance to a cord of 3 strands. It's more like a cord that's unraveling. Take a piece of sewing thread and pull it from both ends, and you'll find it snaps very easily. But you take 3 or 4 or 20 or 100 pieces of sewing thread, and you intertwine them and wrap them together, and you can make a cord or a rope that's it's impossible for you to break it by hand. But America, getting back to that, getting back to what's happening in America, America's in danger of just completely unraveling, and it will continue to do so unless we as a nation return to God. Now, this nation's leaders and its people, they must acknowledge we were founded on Christian principles. our leaders and the people of this country must acknowledge that it is God who establishes the nations. And at any time that God so chooses, he can bring down a nation. America now, it's certainly not been perfect, but I would challenge anyone to show me a nation in the history of the world that ever has been perfect. No nation's ever been perfect. There have been mistakes made in our past. But with that said, the worst mistake that any nation can make is to turn away from God, and that's where America finds itself at the moment. This cord will continue to unravel. We will become more and more divided, and I believe this division that we're facing in this country right now, it is judgment from God, and there is biblical precedent for that. That's not just my opinion. But unless we as a nation cry out to God, seek his forgiveness and healing, the cord will just unravel right down to the last thread. And in that little analogy I gave you just a while ago, that last thread will be one that is very easily broken. But there's good news in all of this. God will hear our prayers and our cries for help. In 2 Chronicles chapter 7, God spoke to Solomon about the nation of Israel and warned them what would happen to them if they turned from God. But the warning was also accompanied by a promise where God said, "If my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land." Like I said, America is a nation founded on Christian principles, contrary to what modern culture tries to tell us, contrary to what non-believing world tries to argue. America was founded on Christian principles. And as Christians, we bear the name of Jesus Christ, so we are God's people. We are called by his name, and it is high time we prayed. And as a matter of fact, it is past time that we started praying. And it is time to seek the face of God. This nation must turn from its wicked ways. God will forgive us. He will forgive this nation if we do this. Healing is not going to come by any other means, folks. It's not going to come from political leaders. It's not going to come from a political system. It's not going to come from some other form of government other than the one that we've known. It's not going to come by way of laws and regulations enacted by human beings. There's only one source for this healing, and that healing can only come from God. That's my message for you tonight. I want to thank you for watching, and as I always say, it is time for me to be gone. Behave, be blessed, have a blessed week, and I love you. More important than that, God loves you. And good night.